do love the great outdoors. It's too bad there's no games about national parks or walking outside.
So the object of trekking the national parks is, strangely enough, have the most points. Doesn't seem to matter how many national parks you go to as long as you get all of those sweet victory points. At the beginning of each game, the board is going to be seeded with a number of stones. Now these are yellow, black, red, green, and there's even a blue stone somewhere around there. This is part of a set collection aspect for when you move around the board. The other thing that's going to happen at the beginning of the game is that there are going to be 3 major national parks established. Now, these national parks, these major national parks, I should say, don't have that many victory points. What they do have are special abilities. And there's also something else I will touch upon later with these national parks. Now, these are 3 of them that could be established. The game comes with 6, and you can choose which ones go out, or you can just randomize it. Now, when you play your turn, you're going to have a hand of cards. The cards are going to have both symbols and numbers. Now, these symbols are, I believe, gloves, feet, campfires. I believe there's even mountains in there. And they're going to have a number on them as well. Now, the number are the amount of spaces that you can move through the United States. And you're going to play any combination of these cards. The symbol does not matter at this point to move the amount of spaces. However, the move must be exact. You cannot move backwards, and you cannot touch upon a park that you've already visited this turn. The symbols matter for claiming a national park. There are going to be 3 national parks out there ready to be claimed by any player, and they are going to have symbols that match what you need to have in your hand before you claim it. And of course, you will have to land on that park exactly, and then play all those cards, and then you'll be able to claim that park. These parks are worth more victory points, but they don't have the special abilities like the major national parks do. And also, a national park that's not a major park can be claimed by only one person, while the major national parks can each have multiple claimants on them, and you have little tents to mark that down. So on your turn of trekking the national park, you're going to do 2 things, or the same thing twice. You can move by playing any number of these cards, and you move the exact amount. And as you walk along, you are only going to pick up a stone that is on the very last space that you land on, passing over all the other ones. Now, the other thing you can do is you can claim a national park. Not one of the major national parks, but you can claim a national park by spending the amount of cards that you're going to need and claiming that for your victory points. You can claim a major park by placing down one of your tents, or you can draw cards. And you'll take only 1 card, not 2. Or you could just take 2 cards if you want.
For those who really enjoy Ticket to Ride and all of its iterations, I think trekking the national parks is a really great extension of that, because there are some similarities to it in terms of your card draw and how you're moving around the board as well. The set collection aspects that you're doing with the stones, but this has a wonderful educational flair to it that I think is great for any age. I like playing with this with adults because we kind of reminisce and talk about our experiences visiting some of these national parks and which ones we would really like to go to as well. And I think it has opportunities for families as well, for children to learn about the individual parks, and it would be a great opportunity in the classroom as well to use that as a teaching tool. The components in trekking the national parks are phenomenal. The artwork is outstanding. The stone quality is really great. The leather pouch that's in here to hold all the stones, I love. And I think it's very well done. This is the 2nd edition that we have here, and I love the little meeples that you're using as your player tokens, the individual tents too. And who doesn't love that first player token, which is the bear? I'm a sucker for great first player tokens, and that has to be among my favorite.
There's a lot to like in Trekking the National Parks, as it uses the formula of Ticket to Ride but changes a few things. You're trying to decide whether or not you want those cards to move or you want those cards to claim the national park. And I found that decision making rather interesting, because there were many times where I needed to get completely across the board, and I had the combination for a very high victory point national park, but that meant spending the cards that I needed to grab it. And yet never once in a game of Ticket to Ride did I think, oh boy, do I need to keep these cards to move or claim a track? Because it's always claiming a track in Ticket to Ride. This one I got that strategic decision to make with moving, or even just putting down a tent anywhere that with the major national parks. And so that's where I found a lot of the great strategy to be. And the fact that you can't move backwards on any single turn. You can't go to the same park that you've been in a single turn. A lot of these are great decisions. And when we were around the state demoing Trekking the National Park for our review, we got a lot of people who kind of snubbed their nose up at it because it was just another iteration of Ticket to Ride, or it just looked too kiddish, it looked too easy. And there's something to be said for that type of mentality in a game like this. It shouldn't exist. This is a gateway game that it's great for everyone. Jenn mentioned as a great learning piece, underneath all the pictures of the national parks, it gives you a little bit of something about this park. Some of these parks I had heard about, but I had no idea where they were. And so without even knowing it, the game gave me a chance to learn something. And I'm not so sure that's something you should stick your nose up at because of the game's simplicity. And so that's probably one of the reasons I enjoy Trekking the National Parks, is it overcomes that expectation of this is a kid's game. It's not. This is a game that everyone can enjoy.
So there's a couple of other things that I really enjoy and appreciate about Trekking the National Parks. One of which is the outstanding rule book. I have to say it's one of the best rule books that we've encountered in a very long time. Very clearly written, excellent pictures and diagrams, and that to me makes the difference between a good game and a great game too, because we all know if you have to suffer through a terrible rule book, then your experience playing the game is not going to be great necessarily the first time you play. I'd also like to mention my appreciation for Charlie's inspiration for this game. On the inside of the box top, there's like a tribute to his parents and his parents' deep love of the national parks. And to me, this game seems like an homage to his parents and their love of this country and all the beauty and natural wonders that are in here. That to me is very rare, and I love that it is so personal to Charlie too, that he's taken something that means so much to him and turned it into this wonderfully accessible game.
So what would our final thoughts be on Trekking the National Parks?
I think it's a wonderful gateway game, don't you?
I do. It's also a great game that, as I mentioned before, for teaching. I think that it checks off all the boxes. You could definitely use this in a classroom. A lot of people always say you can use any board game in a classroom, especially if it uses math or history. But this one is a little different. We're teaching geography, we're teaching history at the same time. And you're getting a chance to just learn more about something you may have never known about. Or, as you said, have some nostalgia for.
So, friends of ours who travel a lot up to Acadia National Park have taken pictures of playing Trekking the National Parks at Acadia National Park. So I love too that it has that kind of portability that you can bring anywhere with you. You could be at Olympic National Park or the Everglades and be playing this too. And I love when games provide those moments where you can actually be playing the game in the activity that's on the game.
You may not want to play in the Everglades though, because if you're not paying attention, the gators can get you.
That's true. So again, I'm Jenn, the board game librarian.
And I'm Matt, the dice checker.
I'd like to thank Charlie Bink for sending a copy of this game for review and for inclusion in my board game library at the library that I work at. And I'd like to thank you too for kind of journeying with us through one of our close by parks. It's not a national park, but hopefully you've been able to see some of the beauty of nature with us today.